Mhm. Speaking of herding cats, mm,
We're a well-oiled machine.
dude,
If
if you
this,
could go like this with the headphones the entire
Right.
time,
Just
just
lean in.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Can you
That's the
scratch
kind
a
of
little?
There we go.
There
Beatbox.
we go.
There's our
that's
intro.
how we get ratings there.
Here we are at episode 38 of the Construction DorkCast, Sparkies Unite. In this episode, we bring in two friends we've gotten to know in the electrical world, Sean Lazarian and Jared Christman. We talk about the journeys that the respective companies have been on as the electrical trade finds its way through the tech revolution. We talk about the benefits of openly sharing lessons learned, and they give us the inside scoop on something they're planning along those lines coming soon. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you all have a great holiday season. We look forward to the new year and new episodes.
And we're live. Thanks, Travis. It's episode 38, Sparkies Unite, with guests Sean Lazarian and Jared Christman. Thanks, guys, for joining us. It's going to be a great night. I've been off the show for one show, so it feels like it's been forever. Maybe it has. So I'm going to start with introducing a little sad, but also good news. I guess it's good if you were the starter of it, but I'm drinking a little High West Rendezvous Rye, and they were acquired recently by Constellation Brands for $160 million. So I guess somebody's happy about all
Somebody's
this.
happy.
It was born and bred in Park City, Utah. Was one of my first introductions to whiskey and ryes in general. So I'm excited. Travis, thanks for putting the background up and making my life a lot easier. Why don't you take it from here?
Yeah. I am drinking an old fashioned tonight made with Sagamore Spirit, which is also a rye from I believe from Kentucky. Yeah, and this is brought to you by your good folks of Flavia. So it's this is one of the I'm not like you, Jeff. I don't drink a lot of ryes just straight. I prefer my corn whiskey or whatever straight, but this rye I can drink straight up. So, but tonight's an old fashioned. So, cheers. What about you, Jonathan?
I'm gonna watch Christmas Vacation tomorrow with the family. So I thought everybody made it, but apparently they don't. Pennsylvania Dutch Company or Dutch Country does an eggnog that's got brandy and let me see, it's rum, brandy, and whiskey blend, and it's already ready for you, which is awesome. And you definitely shouldn't drink a lot of it, but man, it's nice. So I'm going to do the Chevy Chase thing and just go with eggnog for the evening.
To answer your question, DJ, before everything gets started, yes, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. What do you think, Sean?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I vote yes. I'm voting all the way around. Yes. Do we have
We already watched it for Christmas. That's an early Christmas movie.
So I've got a Christmas party coming up this weekend, and the theme is dressed like your favorite Christmas character, and I'm going as John McClane.
Nice.
Because it's absolutely a Christmas movie. So I bought one of those, those bare chest 6-pack shirts. I'll wear that. Then I'm going to wear my wife beater over it. And then I got socks they're called gnarly feet on the top of them. So you got like these broken hairy toes that are on the top of your sock. So I've got a gun. I'm taping to the back. I'm doing the whole shebang.
Wow.
But there's two types of people, right? Those that think that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and then communists. So
That sums it up.
True.
Dude, I'm surprised you don't bring like a little piece of ductwork with you so you can drop the little piece of ductwork and just be up in there for the
That's a great idea. Get a box and wrap it with tinfoil.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
Have you guys seen the Christmas ornament? That's that.
Oh, we have one of those. Everybody's got to have one of those, man. Those are awesome.
Oh my God, you guys are way off the rails. Way off the rails. Bring it back. Sean, you got to introduce what you're drinking. Tell everybody who you are as well, because the rest of us just consider that nobody wants to know who we are anymore.
So my name is Sean Lazarian. I have a small to medium-sized family business in Los Angeles. I'm the third generation owner. My grandpa started the company 60 years ago, old enough that this background was actually, I don't know which decade it was, but I found it in the archives. There's a lot of old things. When you've been pretty much in the same building for 60 years, you go digging, you can find some interesting stuff. So yeah, I'm the CFO, but it's a family-run business, so I've done just about everything at one point. I'm the unofficial computer guy because I was the computer nerd in the family. That's pretty much how it goes. I am drinking just a simple Jack and Coke, mainly because I had family over this weekend and they drank everything else. So that's all I had left.
What's family good for?
That's what they're good for. Jared, what about you? Introduce yourself to everybody, although you've been on before.
So Jared Christman, VDC manager with Big State in San Antonio. We've been kind of transferring over into the Revit world for getting out of AutoCAD and into the Revit world for about 4 years. And we've just, really taken to that like a fish to water, excited to be a part of it. We are huge on if it's going to be in the model, then it's going to be in the field. There is no, BIM for space or, contractual BIM. If we're putting it in the model or if it's getting installed in the field, it's going to be in the model. So it's been a challenge. Lots of hurdles, lots of failures, lots of successes, lots of getting some of the more experienced, we'll call them electricians, over to the dark side of the digital world, but we're making progress.
That's awesome. And I know you got a drink there. You went off to make that. So what are you drinking?
I did. Rebecca Creek. It's a local distillery here. It's actually one of the ones that we have given off in our group. That was one of the sample bottles that, it's a really good bourbon. And, I'm not going to be drinking a lot of it because I'm going to be leaving here and go visit the grandbabies, but you got to partake.
Hey, yeah. Well, we appreciate you taking a moment to have a little sip with us to get loosened up, because we're going to have a lot of fun with this episode because, when we started talking about it and the idea came up, you guys are I think we all got a chance to work together or meet together at the recent NICA event. At least I did with you, Sean, and Jared at different times. And it was really awesome to see the transformation that's going on for Sparkies right now, in the electrical world. And that you guys are kind of taking your seat at the table and tell us a little bit about, I think you guys have some things in store. So why don't we kind of just start there with what you might have in store, what might be coming up soon here?
Well, let's start off. Sean and I, so, I've met Sean through our NICA Innovation Task Force. And, we've been to a couple of different committee meetings. We had Tampa Bay. Then we had NICA in Nashville where we all met up. And, I'll tell you what, Sean, he doesn't belong in LA. He's like born and bred Texas. He just doesn't know it. Right. So we sat there and him and I got to having some conversations and talking and, along with the wife, and we just realized there's a gaping hole in the electrical VDC world. And, there's a ton of questions that people want to know, and there's nowhere really to get this information. So we thought it would be a great idea for the two of us to get together and try to start some kind of a dialogue and getting information out there and kind of see where it goes. But, it's great with Sean coming from a small family owned electrical company, which I think is awesome the way he talks about them. He's going to have to tell you some stories about how you had to approve it by the VP and dad said, okay, by the president and dad said, okay, it's just, I love it. But, you get kind of two aspects. You get a small electrical company, you get a big electrical company, electrical contractor, and you realize we've got almost the exact same problems. It doesn't matter scale, it's per trade, and how do we handle that? So.
Yeah. And from my point of view, Jared's doing stuff I want to do. And it's, I'm pretty much just trying to mooch off him. That's really my main goal here. But it's like, I'm curious to know, and I think this was in talking with Jared, he's interested in sharing this, how they got to where they are. And there's this kind of giant hurdle of, I'm not doing anything. Maybe I did some like coordination modeling or clashing just for that. But how do you get to almost no BIM to you're prefabbing, you're sending it all out, everything in the model goes in the field. There's a surprisingly lack of information on how to get there. And it seems, it's kind of the Wild West theme. Is everyone's kind of making their own way. And Jonathan, I think you said once that, we're all building bridges to nowhere, or roads to nowhere. We all have the same road to the same nowhere. And if we could just share a little bit of that, maybe we wouldn't waste our time building roads and bridges to nowhere. And a lot of it's kind of, there's a fun part about it because you can kind of get creative. You're trying to, problem solve and come up with solutions that no one's thought of. It's not so set in stone that it's easy, but it's a challenge. And I know I've found that the software that's there, I mean, just using Revit, the base Revit there's all this stuff you gotta add to it, either other software or customizing it. And most people they get Revit, like that's what happened when we got it. Well, you get Revit and you open it up and you think, what do I do? And halfway through you realize you should have done a template, and now you're into the model a bit, and none of your elbows are working out. And so there's just a whole bunch of stuff that just seems like it'd be great if we could just, share some of this knowledge and talk with some other people and see where everyone else is at.
Jared, when you introduced yourself, instantly DJ jumped on after you said, yeah, we BIM what we build. When we make a model, we make it to actually build. And he's like, what a novel concept. Because like the fact that you had to have like a warning, hey, we're not the people that just build a model for nothing or build a model because it's in the contract. I think that really speaks to the problem itself, of this difference between sort of this requirement that we see and then people that are taking it seriously and saying, wait, there's a reason that they started to require all this. So I have a question, and it kind of works off of what Sean just said. What was, when you guys first made that decision to say, okay, we're going to do this, what were some of the hints you can give other people about making it real for them? Because I've also been in the seat of a VDC person and talking to an owner, and the owner's like, just get it done fast. We're not going to use it anyways. So what are some of the things you can tell us about changing that owner's attitude about what BIM should be in the company?
So, for us, one of the key things, right, is put a little sign outside your office that says no sharp objects. So that way, when the electricians come to talk to you, there's no threatening, no, it's that was a big hurdle, is getting the electricians on board. And we tried at first just, giving them layout, right? We have electricians, 35-year electricians in our office that we have trained with Revit, and these are guys that are electricians, they spent their years out in the field, and now they're spending their golden years into the office, So, they got the knowledge, but you still got to get the participation and the buy-off from the guys in the field, right? You need to get that unity, that team thought process. And for us, that was the big part. Hey guys, come on into the office. Let's spend 3 days. Let's lay out, our hard copies. You show us your route. You give us what you want to install, and we will put that into the model to the best of our ability. And once they got the participation and the buy-in, now it's not our model, or it's not their installation. It's ours, right? It's our model. It's our project. It's our installation. So that was a big winning point for us. Get them on board. Let's start talking. Let's work together, and it was amazing because you don't realize it till you're not using it all the time. The I or the they or them, and everyone, the field guys start giving us a call and say, hey man, we need to take a look at this, or hey, we made a mistake, as opposed to, damn you VDC guys, y'all screwed this up, and that was probably the biggest part. Get the field guys involved, participate together, open line of communication, and we all got the same goal. They build it in the field, we build it digitally.
Yeah, I know from the owner's point of view, or maybe the management, you could say, one of the things that was probably the most convincing for my dad, my boss, and the VP, but the fact that we could get in early, because usually electrical is at the end, where the little conduits, we can bend it around, there's no flow, we're not this giant duct. So we get just destroyed on labor being at the end. So the fact that we could figure out where we're going to be and get there before anyone else gets there, and if they're in their way, we can tell them to move. Like if we had a point, we did the BIM, and I forget who it was. Someone was off by 4 inches, which was right where our feeder was supposed to go. And for the first time in the company's history, we were told the guy, "Go move it. You're in the wrong spot," and he had to. I mean, that stuff doesn't happen if you don't have a model, because they just say, "Screw you, go move it."
Right.
You're easy. The other thing I found was when you do a bunch of duct banks, it looks massive. It looks big. Like I did one of the first VDC jobs I did was I just used giant squares for all the conduits because I didn't want to. It was like 2008. I wasn't going to try and do a bunch of 3/4 inch conduits. So what ended up happening is this giant, massive square just going straight down the hallway was there, and so everyone else moved around me because it looks like I got this giant thing, even though it's a bunch of 3/4 inch conduits. They moved because it gives you that visual of it. Now, in reality, a bunch of 3/4 inch conduits is more of a pain to move because that's like 10, 12 different independent, elbows. That can be a pain. So it kind of works as a bunch of little conduits too. But people have this mindset of, electrical is easy to move around. And that's not always true. If you get a big duct bank, it's a pain. But without the model, there's just no way to convince people of that beforehand. It's by the time you're there, it's too late. So that was a big thing, I think, for at least my dad, of this. This can help us lower our labor cost by getting in early. That's a quick and easy one that most guys will understand. We'll prefab it all and get it out to the shop can be a little bit more difficult to prove out. For us, it's more because we don't use MC cable. We're all like public works, that's hard pipe, and that just gets harder to prefab out whole assemblies. If you guys know anyone who's doing that, I'd love to know it, because I'm trying to figure out how to like collapse down, 60 feet of 3/4 inch pipe with wire in it and not nick the wire. I haven't seen it yet.
Hey, Sean, the reason they moved around you, it's not because it was because it was duct. People see duct and they just automatically think, "Oh, that's not electrical, it's duct work." Move around them. Don't tell anybody. Keep that a secret. You draw duct work in there, people will still coordinate around you.
We used to have that problem too, man. And like we'd have a rack with like 12 pipes on it. And if you have a rack with 12 pipes on it, that's a lot of 90s. That's a lot of fittings. I think where we won is if you use the old version of fabrication, you could turn on the pricing so that when you connected the pipe, the people would see how expensive it was to move. And that usually shocked the room. Like if you did a little offset and then you showed the cost of the offset, that was a pretty good way to get them to go, "Oh, well, maybe I'll just, do one specialty piece of ductwork rather than have you move 15 lines." I've been working with that innovation group with Nika, and I don't want to say this in a critical way, but it does seem like electrical is behind mechanical in ductwork and sprinkler in terms of prefabrication. But in working with you, Jared, when you were making a rack for the show, it seemed like there was a lot of benefits that we don't have. You didn't have to be airtight. You could use really easy slip couplings. What do you think the sort of the holdback's been on the electrical side that's allowed some of the mechanicals to get ahead? Or do you have an idea?
I think a lot of it was fear, right? And then the being afraid, because I can't tell, when we first started this process and we started saying, "You know what, we're going to start prefabbing electrical," we heard all the time, you can't prefab electrical. There's too many variables. We heard it all the time. And once we realized that, you take your model that is a contractual only model and you put in another probably 20-25%, now you've got something that's actually buildable, prefabable. And that was what, did it for us. We just, once we had it in the model, it was easy, now, to prefab it, we had our challenges, the slip couplings you mentioned, that's not what we used at first, but we realized that we had absolute zero fudge factor without them. That slip coupling gives us just a hair to be able to trimble our racks and then still be able to fit them together. So that was an evolution. It was just one of those things that people said forever, you can't do it. And then once everyone started kind of messing with it, they realized, you know what, we can. And, and one of the things too is the fact that when you look at a design model, the amount of ductwork that's already there in the design model, it kind of gives you a head start in your layout for the construction, right? It may not get you all the way, but it gets you some. Well, that's kind of the hard part with the electrical is we get an electrical design model and we'll get panels and lights and that's about it. Everything else is up in the air. So there's a lot more time and effort that goes into having to build that full-blown system. So, it's just a lot of things, a lot of little hurdles, but once we started messing around and kind of, messing with the prefab, we realized, it's not that far off. And now we're trying to find more ways to prefab. What else can we prefab? I would say, well, one of the jobs we just did, we did over 1,000 prefabbed assemblies, that were built in the shop and took out to the field. And, you figure each one of those is a considerable percentage of labor hours that was saved.
Definitely.
So how are you, Sean, kind of like gleaning from that and figuring out how to use that? Because it's two different scales that you're dealing with. So how are you gleaning that?
I'm still trying to. A large part of it for me is just trying to figure out how to really get started on it. Even, when we've done prefab, it's like doing classrooms, things that are extremely repetitive. The problem we have is that to have prefab like full time in your shop, you need a certain amount of volume to keep those guys busy. And if we have a big job, there'll be a short time we do that. And in Los Angeles, we have what's called the CW program. It's a construction worker, I think it's the CW is for. It's kind of a low cost. It's not even an apprentice. It's kind of used to be called the summer helper program. So people use that, things like that, for their prefab shop because you put them in, you train them briefly on something simple, and you send them back. That's been probably one of the biggest hurdles long term is how do I get enough going where you could have an actual like a full-time shop. Like we've got a space where we'll do some prefab. I'm in the back of my mind is really that's a place where the distributors could really start helping out. If there's some sort of like I can order assemblies from a distributor, and maybe it's not as cost effective as if I did it myself, but I'm not staffing all that. There's a whole host of things to get that done, but that would be without that it's a hard sell to get the smaller guys into the full prefabbing and BIMing, just because it's of that staffing issue.
And Sean, we use that same program. We have the CW also, and what we have the same problem with the amount of people in that prefab shop and keeping them staffed up. And what we have done is we've got 2 foremen that we keep in there that will, that is our only permanent, labor force in the shop. The CWs come in, we train them, we get past that project, and then they go back. But our 2 guys are always there finding some way to keep that prefab going. But we do have to staff up and down. It's absolutely fluid,
Even the mechanicals have to do that. I mean, it's not limited to anybody else. We talk about it all the time in our geographic area. We have, we essentially have 3 pipe shops. So, sometimes you end up stealing productivity from one to feed the other. So that's an ongoing problem until construction itself becomes more of a straight line versus the wave. Unfortunately, that's a problem. But one of the things that I've been thinking about while listening to the conversation is, and I don't know if we met in Tampa, Sean, but I don't have a great feel for the scale difference. But you've done a great job of learning from Jared and from Nika, and hopefully we'll all learn a lot more from each other at the MEP Innovation Conference. But one of the things I'd like to learn from you as that small to medium sized player, like I have to commend you, one, for being in on BIM so early. I don't think I know many small contractors that have done that. But the other thing is you probably have implemented on a faster scale than any of us. What's that journey been like? Because you don't have 700 employees that you have to convince to do something. Can you elaborate on some of that?
Yeah. So, well, I'll tell you that the journey, the start of the journey is kind of a funny story. I think it was about 2009 or 10. We got our first job. It was going to be a BIM job, and it was just a coordination clash. And at the time, the boss, my dad, just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Who am I going to find to do this? And the VP was actually a family friend, and I'd grown up with him. Actually, his nephew was my best friend, and he kind of looked over at me with this thought of like, well, the computer nerd over there has done all the other computer stuff we've asked him, so can he do it? I mean, he didn't really understand exactly what it was. And at the time, I had done, so this is what, 2010. When I was like in high school, I did video game level design for like Duke Nukem. I mean, like early 3D games. And funny enough, with the VP's nephew. And I was like, I think I can, because I remember pretty much doing this. It's not that dissimilar.
Duke
so,
Nukem, come on, that's a heck of a drop right there. You should pause.
There you go. The build editor.
You go OG, you go OG dork right there.
Yep. And I don't remember I mean, and Quake was the other one. Quake was an actual 3D, like full 3D thing, which I remember being just totally lost at in high school, because especially on like, what, a Pentium 1 maybe, like that's, it didn't work out so well.
I was an Unreal Tournament guy, man. That was ours, man. We played Unreal, dude. Yeah. Capture the Flag in Unreal Online was my first game ever.
Yeah. In the back of my mind is still like high school kids who do this stuff are probably, they've got all the BIM skills already. So, you just have to train them with construction. Just have them, work construction a couple summers to get an idea of what you do. So anyway, so that was kind of the beginning of that. And it was easy for me to do. The hard part for me was because I was never actually a field guy, was trying to get some of the field guys to be like, where would this actually go? It's mainly pipe is the hard part. But at the time I think we're only doing 2-inch and over conduit. That's still mostly what I see in electrical when you do coordination models. So that part is easier. I basically have 2 or 3 people I need to convince to do BIM. And we've always been a little more tech focused and engineering kind of focused, mostly because we get bored. Me and my brother get bored really easy, so we need to do something to keep us busy. So I have no concept what it's like to have to convince like layers of management. But the thing that you run into when it's like a family business, like if I had to convince my dad that the laptop I wanted to get that could do like Revit, I didn't want to get it to play video games on, because he still has like the memory of me as a 16-year-old kid playing video games. I'm like, no, you need a good graphics card to do 3D modeling. Like it's not.
And then I can play video games.
And then
yes, of course I still did. Not primarily. So so yeah, so that's kind of the harder part. Is one just I'll say this: if that one person or 2 people that you need to convince isn't on board, you're kind of screwed, because that's it. I can't I'll get a couple other people to go in on this. Your odds of success are really this. It's a big hit or big miss.
Yeah, and think about that. You've got one swing at the plate, whereas, okay, this pocket didn't work out for me. I'll go try this other set of PMs or something like that.
Yeah. The way my company is segregated, because my brother's the field guy, he's been an electrician. What we oftentimes will do is, if one of us doesn't like it, we kind of take it as, well, maybe that's not a good thing to do. If both of us like it, then it's a much better sell, because if it passes both of us, because we don't really overlap very much, then it's a pretty good shot.
I have a general question that kind of goes back to what you were saying about staffing and everything. We have in mechanicals, we have a yellow label agreement where we can fab and ship that fab to another job site, and we put a little yellow label on it. It says Fabs by Union. And it was my understanding leaving NECA in Nashville that doesn't exist for you guys. Do you think that's a hindrance? Or did I misunderstand what they were saying in regards to that?
I don't even know what you're talking about. What do you mean by you put a...
When you're a union shop, in order to fabricate for a job that's not in your territory, basically, you use the yellow label agreement, which is a label that goes on the fabricated item, allows you to ship it. Like when I ship skids down to Georgia or something, they're under that yellow label agreement. From my understanding, because prefab's not a big deal in electrical quite yet, that doesn't exist. And it was more a worry for places like you, Jared, where you're prefabbing a lot and you have all the machines. You know, we had a Watts pipe cutter because we could ship our fab anywhere in the United States, regardless of you know, the area under that agreement. Were you aware of that, Jared, or is it just something that I heard?
I did not know about that, but that is an absolute problem that we have, right? We've got San Antonio, we've got Austin, we've got an office in Houston. Austin has its own prefab shop, their own BIM department, all that. Houston does not. So we had a project over there, and we were trying to. They worked out an agreement, but there was definitely not one in place at the time to get our prefab to Houston. You know, I've never heard of that concept, that yellow tag, but it's a great idea because, you know, it's just basically telling them maybe not your union, but someone's union built that. You know, it was a union shop that did it. It was a union. And, you know, it's a big issue because all it does is basically it hinders the project because, you know, that's a prime example with Houston. They don't have prefab. So why should the job suffer if we've got the prefab capabilities, even if it's same company, you know, a couple hours away, you know? But
it's a natural hurdle. I mean, mechanical didn't have it at one point either, Jonathan. And I think that's kind of showing where electrical is in the process, right?
I'll point out too that it's not perfect in the mechanical room either. Like there are still, you know, certain municipalities where it's harder to ship into because you didn't build it in their jurisdiction, and even with the yellow label, so it's still not perfect, but it has come a long way.
The NFL collective bargaining agreement is not working either, and let's be honest, like there's a lot more behind that. So it's a matter of a few of the things have to transform along the way, you know, to make it possible. So it'll be interesting to see as electricals kind of open up that bargaining agreement and get an understanding of how they can do that. Because honestly, I don't think, and Sean, this is going to be an interesting thing for you as your company grows, as to whether or not you get involved completely in prefab as a core competency, or if you're a consumer of prefab, especially if you're a builder of BIM, and in BIM and electrical, you can still be an installer without being a fabricator if you can consume fabrication from other places, right? Yes. Like this is the interesting thing that changes the mindset. So, I mean, I don't even know where to take that guy. For once, I didn't have a question. I just had to like.
No, hey, I think that you hit the nail on the head too, and it's something that we've talked about, you know, through the MCA, and hopefully we'll have more of these conversations as our committees get together. But you know, there is still, you know, whether you think it's a dystopian future or what's the opposite of dystopian? Utopian future, where you have contractors that become installers or fabricators. You know, that is a real possibility. Like Sean, you said, you know, you hoped for distributors that would prefabricate, and there are some of us contractors that are like, I don't know about that, because then you become kind of a competitor with your distributor, and that's a really weird relationship. Again, no question out of that. That's just
yeah. But I want to go ahead, Sean.
No, that's interesting because there's a lot of consequences, I should say, of these things. And I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right. That would weirdly make me competing with my distributors, which is not just gut reaction. It's like, I don't like that.
But it's a unique, Travis, you bring it up. So first of all, I think it should be telling, and we should call this out, that you couldn't remember utopian over dystopian.
Right.
That truly means you're.
And I'll throw myself under the bus. I've only had one cocktail.
Yeah, like, well, you're in construction, right? Like, we don't ever see the.
I lose words sometimes.
But we're not really in the utopian side of society right now.
No, this is more dystopian.
It's all dystopia.
Yeah, no. This is all dystopia.
We talk about arms races in a lot of different places, and I think this is an arm race, and I think I know where my bets are at this moment, but it's an arms race that I think the the unionized labor has an opportunity to be better at and like take the lead from a perspective that as much as non-unionized is non-connected, right? So this is a connected group. It's connected groups. There's power in numbers and power in ability that way. Seems to me that there's an opportunity there then to connect things that others, because they don't have those means and methods and access, so that everybody gets a part and a piece that could move the entire thing forward. I mean, think about this for a second. Jared, why would Big State Electric care about teaching Sean and his small company anything about the process of what you guys are up to?
Well, for me personally, and this is why I, and working with Sean and, trying to get this open dialogue and the NEC or the NICA, innovation. Mm-hmm. If I can elevate a smaller company and we can teach them and work together, it elevates the entire industry. And as an industry, if we get better, then it's just better for everybody. So
the way to kill hard bid is whole rising tide. The way to kill hard bid is to have nobody else be doing it. The way to kill certain things, like to kill stick build in the old way in non-BIM, is to have everybody doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's, one of the things like, that I started posting on the LinkedIn, people were surprised that I was so open with some of our, not really trade secrets, but some of our processes, some of the hurdles. And that's what I've been telling everybody is, look, we work together as a team as opposed to working against each other. It's just going to be better for everybody when we come to the GC's table and say, look, this is what we want to do.
Right. We've said all the time that the secret sauce isn't your recipe. The secret sauce is the chef. You can give out your recipe all you want. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to recreate it the same way.
Yeah. That's just, it's the Sal D'Ambrosio, right? Like, I mean, it over and over again. He's like, I want to transform, but somebody keeps coming in and saying, I'll do it the old way and cutting my legs out. We need everybody. Sean, you had something there. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I mean, another nice thing is because I'm not even in the same state as Texas. I mean, granted, there's like a whole flood of people coming from California to Texas every year, but I'm not. My family's all here. But or even more so with the mechanical and the plumbing and the and electricals getting together, we're not really competing with each other. So it's so much easier to share things when it's not like you're the guy 10 minutes away from me who could be literally competing with the same customer. I mean, the other nice thing of being in California, like no one wants to come in here to do business. Like people who, my dad's friends or other NICA contractors, we get a fair amount of business of people out of state because they know, like, I don't want to deal with Los Angeles and California, all the rules and regulations. Like you'll lose your shirt because you just don't know all the little details. So I don't really worry too much about people moving in here to compete with us, just from where I'm at. But that's the good thing about the whole different trades getting together.
Yeah, and I was going to say earlier too about the MCA that one of the things we've really done well is the sharing, and we've got I'm sure Sean McGuire can pull it up again. But we've got pictures of 4 companies all in the same region, standing around on a table trying to solve the same problem. Because to Jared's point, like if we can solve it for ourselves, why don't we solve it for everybody? And then we just raise that bar that much higher, and the work in our area gets that better. Even I understand we don't want to. I mean, Dave Pikey from Hill Mechanical is actually what I would consider a good industry friend of mine, and he's 2 hours from me. We compete quite a bit, but we'll bump into each other in an airport and we sit down and talk because we understand that the problems this industry have are bigger than us butting heads over sharing those secrets. So,
no, you shouldn't. I mean, we can fight over crumbs if you want, but as an industry, if we bind together, we can actually all get a fair share. There's no one ring to rule them all. Right. I mean, it was nice to see Katera ring a bell for us all because that's the way I feel. They rung a bell that the industry, and the consumers of what we build want it done a different way. They didn't have the answer, but that's okay. They rung the bell. So we have the opportunity to provide that service and that experience differently than before. But
and kind of back in the competition piece, while I'm still on my soapbox a little bit, Sean and Jared, what would you do if you actually won all the work that you've been on?
Buy a new house?
Well, or crumble under the massive weight.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't spend enough time at home as it is, man. It's like anyone who gets into the VDC world needs to realize that your office and your desk and your computer is really your home, and your home is just kind of like a place you sleep.
Yep.
Yeah. But my greater point to that is, like, I would rather be competing against people on the same level playing field than losing jobs to people that just don't do a good job. So if I can help my competitors in a way that makes everything better, again, it kind of levels that playing field out.
Yeah, and Marsh, that takes kind of with us working together on the multi-trade, kind of an aspect of that too. Now we're working with mechanical and plumbers and electrical on a multi-trade rack, and how does, again, that elevates the entire process. It's just one of those things that is, as an industry, we want to work with mechanical, we want to work with plumbing, we want to work with other electrical companies, our electrical contractors, and we're all football players, right? We're all on the same field. We may be on different teams or whatever, but we're still all on the same field. And we work together, then we win together.
Absolutely. By the way, so for the audience, me and Jared built an electrical rack for one of the shows, and we were going to build a multi-trade rack and have everybody over to Jared's shop to build it as a multi-trade, but timing didn't allow us to do that. And so as we're getting ready to build the other half, the electric or the mechanical side of this electrical rack, we're like, well, that's a companion rack. And then instantly, like, I had 3 people talking, well, wait, we should make fittings that allow us to do companion racks every time. That way we can always work prefab in our own shops and then just bring it out to field and like literally Lego it together. So, I mean, there's a lot of, like, once you start down that road, there's a lot of happy accidents. But I was wondering if I could dial it back to tech, because at the very beginning you were talking about Revit, and Jared, you came a long way in Revit, and I've looked through a lot of electrical models. And I know for the mechanical side, and this is more than a decade ago, this is a long time ago, we had fabrication come onto the market, and a lot of mechanicals, once that product hit the market, it was like a huge enabler. Like, now we had real parts with real dimensions, with labor, with all this other stuff. Have you found anything technologically that has been something you'd recommend to everybody out there? Like, and it doesn't have to be a product, but hey, we don't mind if you say a product, but like, I look into the electrical models. I look at your content sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay. You just used like a piece of pipe or something. Like what in the world did you just do? Or Sean, you said you used a giant rectangle. Have you found anything that's like, you're like, man, this is kick butt?
For us, we went and we looked through a bunch of different add-ins and subscription software, stuff like that, tested a bunch of them. And we ended up, and this is, for us, Dynamo. It's free. It came with Revit. There was a learning curve. We realized that we could not learn as much as we needed to. So we contracted out all of our programming to a third party. And the money that we're not throwing away in subscription and the custom stuff that he writes that's geared towards our process, that right there was the glue. That's what made everything possible, because we couldn't get the amount of information into our models with the amount of detailers that we had. We're too busy trying to keep up with the BIM. How do you get all this data entry stuff, or create your sheets, or create the views? We do we do a junction box detail for every junction box in the job. And that way they can send out the right connectors. They know it's got a unique number. There's no way we could have done that. 800 on a level. We couldn't have someone come in, create the sheets, create the views, make the dimensions. We started writing Dynamo graphs, and what would take us 30 to 45 seconds a box. Now we run 800 in about 6 or 7 minutes, So that to us was a game changer. And then, that gave us the ability to add more content with the same amount of time, same amount of people. And then that gave us the ability to now prefab what we had in our model. And it's funny because we actually have a problem that we have so much data in our models. We're like, dang, we got all this stuff. How else can we use it? What else can we do with this data? And that's where we are right now. We're trying to find more things that we can do with this data that help the field out. One of them is that cost, doing our own cost analysis, routing conduit from, the option A and option B, and it giving, spitting out a price difference for the two. But again, doing it all internal towards our process.
Dude, I think that's amazing that you went straight to programming. We have a lot of people in the industry right now that are actually looking at all the products out there and going, it doesn't really fit my business. And Dynamo does make it super easy. Like before, when you were in AutoCAD, there was COD was one of the scripting languages that was really used. Like I have thousands of those little buggers sitting around because I was like you, Sean, I had a teeny shop with less people, and it meant you programmed more and drew less. But Dynamo is crazy and what it can now automate. Do you leverage it a lot, Travis?
We do some. We've had recent issues with as the market that we're in pushes versions of Revit further. We find certain packages are no longer supported. So now we're kind of kicking the tires and going back to something more of a CAN solution. It's kind of, I would liken it a little bit to like moving your ERP to a cloud environment. Like, let's make this somebody else's problem. Like if we upgrade from Revit 2021 to 2022, somebody else's problem if it all breaks. But it's a good segue because, I'm going to steal Jonathan's question and push it back to Sean. Like, from your aspect, you mentioned starting really early on with Revit and all the extra stuff and knowing or not knowing what you really needed. What sort of tool set have you developed? I'm assuming you don't have the same resources that maybe Jared does to start throwing at it.
Yeah, not at all. So in 2008, I was actually just using AutoCAD, the 3D part of AutoCAD. I think, Jeff, earlier you talked about how it seems like electrical is behind the other guys, and that's absolutely true. And you could see it, for me, an indicator of this was in Revit. Like Revit electrical always seemed to be behind everything else. And so at the time I remember looking at Revit and just being like, I don't know if this is really there yet. And every so often I'd check in with people and get the same kind of like, it's getting there, And I couldn't tell you why. I wish I knew why that is.
Supply and demand. I'll stop you for a second.
Yeah,
Supply and demand. That's all it is. Literally, it is a reflection of who's asking and yelling the loudest. That's it.
Makes sense.
Keep going though.
Yeah. So right now, so for a long time, it was that and Navisworks. So I'd have 2 or 3 monitors. One monitor is Navisworks, where I'm looking at the clash, because it's mainly just been clash detection for us. And so just looking at where I need to be, there's the trick of like figuring out where your height is by when the box thing kind of disappears on the horizon. I don't know if there's a name for that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So that's, you find that for your height, and then you roughly translate that to the Revit or AutoCAD. I'm just more recently trying to get into Revit. And it's just, there's things, just trying to get like, just getting offsets into pipe. It's surprising how hard it was just to get 2 pipes at different elevations to sync up. And it just seems like you're like, there's like almost like an artist touch to make this happen without something going wrong. So that's been, Navisworks and AutoCAD or Navisworks and Revit have been kind of the main ones. The job I have now has a really tight ceiling space. And so the thing I'm working on now is I want my guys in the field to be able to see the model for the other trades, because there's just, I'm trying to think, how do I get this information to the guy? If you label heights, it's just going to get kind of rough. So it'd be great if they, pull up the iPad or I actually have a HoloLens that I got from Nika that
Nice.
I've been continually trying to find uses for. I think, Jerry, we were talking about this. It seems like this thing should be amazing, and it's like it's almost amazing, but somehow it doesn't quite pan out. And
we should have a conversation. I have a job site that's actively using one. It's a whole other. But yeah. I can help you out. I'm stuttering with myself. Like, this is how I got probably a little bit of notoriety in this industry. Is we figure out that you can use a HoloLens pretty well, but not for everything you imagined you could. Does that make sense? Like, let's accept it for where it is, and you can get a lot of use out of it. Anyway, that's like that could be a whole other podcast.
It's not a whole. I mean, but Travis, what you're talking about is getting an ROI on something worthwhile for a segment of what. And
when we first bought it, my boss wanted to trimble off of it, wanted to hold duct up in a place, and it would just. And it's like, okay, that's it's not there yet, but this is what we can do. And
everybody on a job site's going to wear it, and nobody's going to use plans, and nobody's going to look at paper. Shit, not everybody's on Bluebeam yet. Come on, man. Like, we're not there. Yeah. However, Sean, it means it has a use case. And what you're doing, but what's cool is you've got it, and you've got this in your Swiss Army knife of Swiss Army knives, and you're not looking at every nail like you're a hammer and trying to think like, hey, you keep trying them. So where else are you trying them? I mean, where else?
Exactly. That's where I was going to go. Is like, what is the future state for someone like you?
Yeah. Say the question again. What's the future?
Well, I mean, were you trying things out? Where are you hoping to go? What would you like to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, a year ago, if you had told me what's the, like, not Minority Report, future, but like, where do I want construction? It would be, well, eventually there'll be less plans and more model. The sooner one was, I would love the foreman to put on this helmet and walk around and make sure that no one missed a conduit that was on page 7, or there was the first times I used the HoloLens, the thing that I thought would have been great would be just the ability to like graffiti a note that just floats there in digital space. So the next time you walk by it, like, just kind of appears right there. And I don't know if I quite figured that one out, or even just marking like this is the beam, and then I'm going to go walk around on top of the roof, and I can like see the beam down below. Mm-hmm. I noticed the whole like perspective thing kind of messes with that, but there's almost like simple things that it's like I feel like they're almost there. That probably, if I just figured out whatever the trick is, could get there. And that's going back to the Sparkies podcast idea. That's part of the idea of like what are these tricks that people have figured out? Someone somewhere has figured this out, and it's not it's not on the news. No one, we're not it's not going to find it there. So
back to the HoloLens thing, like a quick story. So funny sad story. We're part of a peer group of mechanicals, and we were showing off our abilities with the HoloLens, and we went out to a major NFL stadium that was being built by one of our peer group companies. And they asked us to show off an area, right? And we threw on the headset, and there was some fiddle fucking around with making sure everything was set up right. And one of the guys just kind of keeps looking over at a wall, and he finally calls somebody over and like points to it and puts the helmet on somebody else. He's like, "We fucking missed a sleeve." So, I mean, that's the use case, and those things like your beam thing and walk around. Anyway. I just keep going back to it because those are one of the easy wins that I've had in my job, but it's not an obvious thing that comes up when you talk about the way people want to use a HoloLens.
I will say, if you give construction workers the ability to make a graffiti of some kind that other people can't see but one of their coworkers.
Oh yeah, they'll be good.
There's going to be a website devoted to those.
Oh, for sure.
That's good. You'll socialize it.
I would say this: when you go to innovate, if you bring up this subject, you're going to get 50 people that are all doing some flavor of that. Because I did the same thing. I had a skid in my my fab shop, we put the holo on it to show somebody like the overlay of the model. And the first words out of their mouth were, oh, damn, the actuators are in upside down, and it's going to Georgia. So that's a lot of money. So I paid for everything right then. It's like done. I paid for it. But so, like everybody, there's also iPads can do that, by the way.
Yes.
iPads do it really well. And if you get an iPad Pro with the LiDAR, it sort of tracks in better. And while I love the holo, like for what you were doing, I think you're going to see more people that use the iPad with AR as the workflow for that. But when you go to innovate, man, or if you guys get your podcast up, you're going to get so much feedback of so many people that have figured it out, but they didn't even know people didn't, because we were being sold the fact that it does this. And so a lot of us figure it out. And then we're like, well, we thought everybody was doing it, right? Everybody can do that.
You're not using a hover card? Why aren't you using a hover card?
It's like what you were saying earlier, Jonathan. It's like, even the guy, the salesman's like, damn, you got that to work?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
we had the salesman into a room, and I had taken all of the labels and put them up on the hangers in AR. And I flashed my phone up because I had it on my phone. I'm like, check it out. You can see all the labels for all the hangers. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's great. And I'm like, this is your product. And you told me I could do that.
No, I mean, come on. I mean, we were looking at like the XR10 and the HoloLens and what it could do. And then Trimble recently was just like, oh, look, here it is on the phone. And you were like, wait a minute, that's democratization of what it can do. And
it's HoloLive 3D.
Flashy cells. Remember, from our side of the world, I'm the tech representative here, flashy cells. But like, I remember having a conversation with a client at one point that was a friend that said, oh, there's all these flashy things we wanted to do, but we put somebody in a mechanical room who couldn't understand that they were trying to put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And we put the HoloLens on their head and they changed like that. HoloLens is $3,500. How much is a mistake in what we do cost?
Oh, yeah.
So really it pays for itself. And then Sean, you've got the opportunity to look at how else you can take advantage of it. So yeah, we have to sell a little bit down the future road to get people to go down that road. But reality is like, it can pay for itself in one thing that works now.
When VR first came out, everybody was saying that there was no real use for VR. Meanwhile, we had a play space, and we'd bring our foreman into the same room that they've looked at on a plan 50 times, and they'd reach up and go, nope, valve's too high. And this is too low. And that's not going to work. And even just seeing things in scale, like changed the game for them, because that's how they live. Yeah. And finding that value is always fun.
So the funny thing was, I did the same thing with VR, Jonathan. I won a VR headset from an AGC, just like you did, Sean. Like you won that. And I won it from an AGC IT event before I was on the committee. And I was literally screwing around, talking to Iris and other companies. And I got a model from a job we did. And Iris allowed me a free license, and I loaded it up. And this guy, I'll never forget, JC Slocum, a good friend of mine from Gallegos. I just like fired this whole thing up in an office trying to walk people through like, oh, BIM's the future. And I thought, yeah, it's going to fall flat, right? He starts flying through. He goes, that opening right there. If we had known that opening was that small, we'd have known we couldn't get our stuff in, and it wouldn't have cost us that. And I go, and all of us have that like one little example of how the technology paid for itself tenfold without it being there.
That's a common thing I've been saying over the last couple of years is they always ask us, and Jared and Sean, I'm sure this applies to you too, is like, what's the ROI? What's the ROI? We never, I guess I shouldn't say never say never, but we almost never go back and recost mistakes we did. That's your ROI.
Yeah. Well,
Travis, that's a comment.
Finding that first real big screw up, that saved the company, the money, looking up at a bar joist job and realizing that all those joists are off about 6 inches from where they have in the model. And we coordinated all our Trimble hangers and prefab assemblies off of those bar joists. That right there, being able to fix it in the model as opposed to having to tear them all apart in the field, that paid for it.
Yep.
Well, and at your size, Jared, I mean, it's going to hurt you. You can absorb it probably. Sean, at yours, what's that going to do to your bottom line?
Yeah.
I mean, and so we're getting close to the end. Although I don't want this one to stop. I love the Sparkies Unite, guys. Like I'm down on the Sparky train. I've been on the mechanical train for a while. I think I'm jumping ship to the Sparky train.
Can you give us a little teaser? Do you have a plan?
Yeah, what's your plan?
Well, ultimately, we're going to get together, but like we were saying, it's going to be, a technology, a little bit of BS. It's like I was trying to push the name Sparky Malarkey because, some of it we are going to be talking, electrical BIM, but, some of it's going to be just BS too, and just, some of the fun things that we have in our industry, some of the challenges we have, some of the technology and the hurdles. I love the concept of open forum, maybe once a month, ask questions, and maybe there's, people that have had the same problems that we have that have found a creative solution, but basically just making it, getting people engaged and talking. And I'll tell you what, and Sean, I don't know about you, but for me, one of my goals this year is trying to get some of the younger generation, the kids out of high school that are thinking about college that maybe don't want to be in the construction field, but want to be in the electrical, get them to realize that, being an electrician nowadays isn't, wire nuts and a wire stripper, now we're probably using more technology day to day than most of the companies, the AR, the VR, the drones, LiDAR, but getting these kids to understand, hey, get into the electrical field. It's digital, and hopefully maybe we reach some younger kids with some of this too,
Yeah, the concept that construction's not like boring and has been done to death. I mean, it has, but we're actually in a weird time where things are changing kind of rapidly for electrical. We had this with with LEDs and all the lighting controls. That was kind of one of the things I got into because I was doing estimating and I was so depressed because it was like, I mean, estimating's rough. You do 10 years straight of estimating, just day in and day out. And it was before I was even still on the plans with the highlighter and the little click, 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 little rotaty guy. And it's just, especially, during the 2008, the crash, I mean, that was like, my poor dad, my dad was like looking at me like, how you doing? You want to have a little fun time or something? And so anyway, so I was like,
nothing
I was just,
with anything too tall.
No.
Keep Sean away from the edge.
That's right. That was right. So just, something to grab my mind onto. And over the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years, it just seems like electricals are really starting to change rapidly. And it's not, like Jared's saying, it's not, I don't think it's something that kids think, oh, I'm going to go be like going to the electrical world. It's certainly not like a computer guy, someone who's into VR or 3D modeling isn't thinking, oh, the construction industry, I think that's where I want to go. But they'll probably have a better time being than like video game design or something. So
they have a better chance of making a good steady paycheck too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they can do video game design here in a way that actually impacts reality, right? That's the one thing that we don't sell consistently as a group. It's why I love the MEP innovation that we're all a part of coming down the road here and everybody coming together is this idea of showing like we're bigger than the sum of our parts and actually creating the funnel in which kids can understand and more importantly, parents. Right? Like right now, selling to kids is one thing, but parents actually influence where their kids go to school, what they do. And I'm a fan. Like I would have never thought 10 years ago that I would tell my kids that construction is a career path that is technologically advanced and will grow them beyond the skill sets that I ever thought. And now 10 years in, I'm like, you shouldn't go anywhere else other than to do this. And that's what the MEP group coming together. Also, this group and what we all do of like, hey, this is a path to make money while learning a skill that's also hot. I mean, come on. Unreal Engine and what are our
Unity
and Unreal. These are our big players.
Right.
Yeah, my programming group is literally from Whitethorn Digital, so they make contracting apps and games for the Switch. And I'm like, that's it. That's their company makes a bunch of games for Switch and Xbox, and then they make apps for me. It's like, so there's that big crossover. But you guys said something. We're talking about the ROI on the HoloLens. Dude, we have a labor shortage. If the HoloLens is bringing people into your company as new employees, I'm writing it down as one of the ROIs for HoloLens and virtual reality is it turns people on, it gets people in, and hopefully they take that technology and fly with it.
Trust me, take it to a job fair sometime.
Oh yeah, you'll have a line.
And so I'm gonna help us wrap it up here because I'm excited. I mean, I think what's really cool about this for Sean and Jared to have you guys on is to show that there's innovation going on at all levels of electrical right now. And that you guys are embracing the paths that others might have brought before you, but you're embracing it, which is going to help accelerate your change. So in that respect, Sean, I want to give you a chance to just let people know how to connect with what you're up to, where you're headed, and just any last thoughts for the group.
Yeah, I don't have my kids laugh at me because I'm like, I refuse to do like Twitter and what's some of the other ones? I can't even think of the names of them. The TikTok and all those things.
Forget
I don't know
those.
what it is.
Yeah, forget all those.
I'm like,
LinkedIn is your jam,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah,
LinkedIn's
just
your jam.
LinkedIn. Just emails, even that.
What's your email? Give
Sean,
your email.
SEAN at escoelectric.com. Please don't sign me up for various spam and other things. But yeah, so I mean that's just the best way to reach out. I mean that's the nice thing about being a kind of smaller company is that it's not like my phone's not ringing off the hook with various things. I get tons of spam email from the estimating days. That's the thing. Like the problem with estimating is that you're on every like bid list. So and because I was on it early, I didn't think to have like bids at escoelectric.com. So it's at some point I have to change my name just to kind of to weed out all the the bad stuff.
Hey, you guys have to tune in. What's the podcast going to be called?
It's between Sparky Soapbox, Sparky Malarkey. I think Sparky Soapbox is going to be it.
Hey, y'all vote, but either way, I want you to connect with them because that's just right there, Sean, about, hey, I should have, when I started, have estimating at, or stop
trade
selling.
Trade show. Every time a trade show, I get like 3,000 spam.
Stop selling me crap at. Like, listen, I'm on that side.
Lessons learned.
I get it. So where else can they connect with you? On LinkedIn? And then, for all of us here, for everybody listening, like what's the one thing you want people to know after listening to this episode?
It's not the far future. A lot of the stuff, it's even for smaller guys. It's here. There's stuff to learn, and it's fun. Like it's not. It's a hassle. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles to get over, but it beats doing the same old thing again and again. Particularly when that same old thing again and again is just going to lead to a little bit less business every year, and soon you're going to be out of business. So third generation owner, like every so often we have to reinvent ourselves. Otherwise, we're a first generation owner because that's just how it goes. So yeah, it's fun stuff. It's interesting stuff, and it's not $1 million in the future. It's stuff that's here that you can actually start doing.
I think that's critical, Sean. You captured a couple of things that I think get lost in the industry is that, like, if you're not adopting technology and moving forward, you're slowly moving into and losing capital that you've created along the way. And so I'm sure your father passed on to you a plentiful environment. And if you don't continue to keep up and change, you're going to provide less to the person who takes it over from you and your kids. And that's not what we want in this business. I mean, the longevity and the things that we've done in this business are what make us who we are. So it's critical that transformation and that adoption happens. So, and that's what it does at your level. And Jared, for you, where you are, talk about why this is important for you and what you see going forward.
Well, for me, it's just a matter of getting everyone to see, if I can use my failures or our failures at Big State and save someone else their failure, if we can help them, if we can teach them based on our failures, then it's saving them money, it's saving them issues. They're going to have their own failures to go up against. Hell, if I can help them out, I'm more power to them, and I'll be happy to do it. And ultimately just, get everyone to realize that we all have the same problems, right? It's regardless of size, we've all got the same problem, regardless of trade, right? Mechanical, plumbers, we all got the same problem. Shrinking schedules, tighter space above ceiling, trying to save fittings. You break it down. Those are the main hurdles that we've got, and it's across all trades. Let's all get together and start talking about it.
It's a fabulous move there, Jared, for both you and Sean to take this from the Sparkies perspective and then join the conversation that's going on and help move the industry forward, because that's the key point that we're at, right? I believe over the next 3 years, we're at the moment that we can have a watershed where we can change what we're doing, and change actually can spark more profit, more money, more growth, more things inside of what we do.
Nice.
So I'm exactly with you. So Travis, any last thoughts?
I completely agree with you. I think that this is that time, and not to heat too much, but like I'm humbled that you guys wanted to come on with us and kind of announce that your initiative along with to our group, and hopefully that grows for you. And I'm really looking forward to the MEP Innovation Conference where we had a lot of fun last year virtually. We had a lot of fun in Tampa. And I'm really looking forward here in Tampa again with the full conference, and really learning again as a whole industry. Like you said, like we all have the same problem. Like, let's work together to stop having those problems. Like, let's have some real fun solving real problems.
Yeah, I think that's key. And Jonathan, I know you've got a few thoughts there you want to wrap up with.
I'll tell you what, man, I'm like 1,000,000% behind you. With a second Jared even mentioned that he was kind of possibly thinking about this, I was like, you should do this. This is a great idea. This needs to happen, because I think that there's, I went to NECA for the first time this year. Was my first time really visiting with that. And y'all kit better than us by a lot. So when I was there, I even had them bring me around, look at all your tooling and everything else. I learned so much, like between working with you as a group and being at that event, that when you guys said, hey, we're going to have a podcast, I'm like, yeah. So now I have to find a car ride in which I'm going to listen to that podcast. And it's going to be another one of those podcasts you have to listen to, because, right now, the next step in our industry is to get that multi-trade going for prefab, and in BIM, we're already doing multi-trade, but to get that dialed in so that we can do that. And I think it's something that's a danger if we don't do it, a significant danger if we don't do it. And it's something that, I think you guys have a lot of passion for, and it comes through when you talk about it. So I wish you the best of luck. I will help you in any way possible. I'd be happy to do a little emblem for you guys when you're ready for the soapbox.
I'll warn you, be prepared. You're going to have literally tens of things.
10, yes. 10.
DJ Phipps is going to bother you everywhere you go.
So Jonathan, I'll tell you what though, that whole like multi-trade rack, why that's going to come out? Because the more we BIM, the less ceiling space we're going to get. Like the architects are going to be raising the ceiling up because they'll BIM it out. So we're going to have to start multi-trade racking, because we're not going to have any space outside of that.
And you're going to have to prefab because there's no schedule left, and you're going to have to get the BIM model right because there's no messing up the estimate. Yeah, I mean, we're sharpening the knives to our own detriment at times, but makes the industry better,
Makes us all better, and that's what we're here, and that's why the DorkCast exists, right? Is because whatever title it is that you two come up with, you have to tell us, because we're here to promote what you guys do. Because the beauty of what we all do is it's a rising tide. It lifts all ships. These conversations can't happen in silos, and actually sometimes they need to happen in silos. Sparkies need to talk to Sparkies because, well, y'all understand each other, and sometimes I don't understand what it is you're talking about. Mechanicals need to talk to mechanicals. Plumbers need to talk to everybody. Does that, right? But then we all got to come together and have these conversations together, and that's how the industry is going to change, right? We're going to come together. And if we do that the way we should over the next few years, we all actually get to win. And that's what, to me here, it's what the point of the Dorks is, right? The point of the Dorks was never to have anyone or pick any one given winner, right? It was to have the winner be the industry, the winner to be all of us who are doing what we do. And so on that, I am going to finish out and close out and thank Sean and Jared for joining us for episode 38, Sparkies Unite, Herding Cats. Well, because you know how we all feel. It's herding cats. Thanks to both of you. Thanks to Jonathan and Travis for being back on together. I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We always are. I do believe though, like everybody thinks their business is a shit show, and like across the board, you actually sit down with them and they're like, oh no, it's horrible, And so many people are so much better than us, and then you're like, no, they're not. I've seen them. They're hurting in different ways, and unfortunately, there's a lot of events where people aren't willing to be honest with each other about like where their business is at. Part of the reason that I liked the MCA is because sooner or later, I think everybody, that's why the bar afterwards is great. Because if they were pounding their chest earlier, by the time they hit the bar and have a few drinks, they're admitting the fact that perhaps BIM has some issues in their business. There's some small issues.
That was always the thing I enjoyed about consulting when I was doing development work before, is just, you walk into a Fortune 50 company and you realize that they also run a large part of their organization off of spreadsheets, and it's sad and disappointing.
We did have a integrated accounting system that is construction management. That's why I'm actually the CFO, because I'm the computer guy, and to manage it, I had to learn accounting because it's just kind of a pain to do. But it was the same thing. You think, someone else, this thing must, I wish this thing could do this better. This is not, maybe we chose the wrong one. And then one of my dad's other NICA buddies from like some other state called me up and said, hey, I've been asking people what they like. We're trying to choose one. Would you recommend yours? And I said, yes, with some caveats. And he said, yeah, it's what everyone says.
Mm-hmm.
So literally not a single person was enthusiastically recommends the software they're using, so which is kind of nice. I was like, I feel better about mine then.
Well,
par for the course.
Right.
Yeah. The worst part is when you do recommend a piece of software, but you do it without realizing the software stack you need to run it right. So it's like you recommended this software that they can't use, like, and you watch them just use it horribly, and you're like, oh crap, I just didn't read. Yeah, you're gonna go back to Excel. We'll just let you go back to Excel.
We're going to start box it back up, please.
The big one, Sean, is don't be on the phone when you're on a podcast. Try to avoid being on the phone at the same time you're on a podcast, unless you're Jeff Sample, the human API.
That was Domino's, man.
Domino's.
The whole idea is I want to go for a bike ride afterwards, so can't have too much. Indoor bike ride.
Oh, then you just fall off. It's not like you drive into a canyon or something.
True. They find me at least. Usually it'd be my kids. My hip.